Hey everyone, in this tutorial, I'm going to be going through this absolute monster of an e-portfolio. Now, this e-portfolio that you're looking at, this is going to impress interviewers. So if you look just at this animation around my mouse, that alone is going to be grabbing the attention of people looking for software engineers for senior positions. All right, so if you're applying for like a junior position and they see just this animation, they're going to be impressed straight off the bat. Not only that, we have a contrast effect, light and dark mode, and this affects the whole application. All right. We got a contact page. If we press this button, look at that. We have our About Me section. Hover over our projects. Nicely done. We got our name. We'll just say David at david.com. And let me hire you today. Send it my way. Loading state, success state. When you close it, look at the animation that comes up. Fades out, and then the text fades back in. Here are some of my projects. Hover over it. You can use these images. You can put your own images on top of these. It's all in the assets folder. When you hover over, all this nice text animation comes in. And we have the footer. If we press contact, what happens? It comes back up, opens the contact for us. So this is going to be, there's a lot of features that you can use. So for your own projects, there's going to be a lot of things you're going to learn and take away from this e-portfolio. So I hope you enjoy. It's not going to be too easy, so you do need to concentrate. But even if you don't, the code is linked in the description, so make sure you check it out. If you get lost at any point, that's fine. You can also ask the Discord server. If you need any tips, if you're stuck at any point, ask the Discord server. Someone, if not me, will help you out. So I'm looking forward to seeing all your portfolios, and let's get straight into it. Hey everyone, I'm super excited to get through this e-portfolio. So just before we start, let's just make sure you have the right environment. So you want to go to Google and search Visual Studio Code and just press this download button. So if you don't have an IDE that you're coding on already, what you want to do is you just want to download the correct version for whatever device you have. So for me, I'll download Mac, but I already have it. So once you download it, you'll see something like this. And what you want to do is you want to press Open File. And you just want to select an empty file. So for me, I just created this tutorial exclusive e-portfolio file. And I'm just going to open it. So once you open a new file, brand new file, nothing in it, what you want to do is you want to press this button. And this will take you to the extensions. And what you want to install is you want to install Emmet. And it's this Mithril Emmet one at the top. So you just want to press this install button. I already have it. And the second thing you want to install is a live server. And it's going to be this one with 13 million installations. And again, just press this install button. But once you have that, those are the two main features that we want. And that's going to make our development really easy. So all we're going to do is right click and press new file and write index.html. And this is where all our HTML is going to live. Now we'll use the Emmet abbreviation, exclamation mark, and they'll bring us this nice boilerplate. So we can rename the title. I'm going to call it David Bragg. And we can actually start the live server and see what it looks like. So right click, open live server. And we see an empty file. That's because we don't have anything in the body. So let's just test. And you can see some text actually pop up, which is cool. So now let's actually bring some styling into this. So I'm going to create a new file, call it style.css. And I'm just going to target every single element. I'm going to color it red. And you can see nothing changes. The color doesn't actually change. And that's because in our HTML, we didn't actually include it. So link rel equals style sheet, href equals style.css, which is our file name. And now you can see, now that we include the file, we can actually see our text is red. So if you see this, that means your style sheet's hooked up and you're ready to go. Okay guys, once you have the environment set up, let's now figure out what we want to work on first. So let's open our inspect element and let's see what's going on here. So first we have a landing page, and the height of the landing page is the entire height of the page, okay? So inside this landing page, we have a navigation bar, which has our personal logo. It has some links. and it has this icon. And then we have some text in the middle. So this is all wrapped in a header. And then we have this mouse, which scrolls us down. We have a mouse event listener that's actually moving stuff in the background, which you can see when I move my mouse. Things move in different directions, so I'll show you how to do that later. And the coolest part, in my opinion, is this button. So when you click it, it opens up this contact page. Now this is a bit advanced, but I'm going to show you how to do it, and it's going to be fine. So let's jump straight into it. So what we want to do is we want to set the background color first. All right, that's the first step we're going to do. So we're going to check the color, 245s. Let's go to here. We'll create a section, hashtag landing page. So what this does with Emmet, let's spell section correctly. What this does with Emmet is it actually creates the section tag. And that's super neat. And inside the section, we want our nav tag. So we want to be semantic here. And inside the nav, we have our image and we have some links. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the image in a figure tag. And then we have some links. And I'm going to put them in an unordered list with a class of nav link list. And inside of this ordered list, we're going to have 3 links. So we write link, class, we're going to call it nav link. Now again, I'm using BEM CSS. So when you see the double underscores and the double hyphens, that's me separating the block, the element, and the modifier. So this makes it really easy to write reusable CSS. And you're going to be seeing this technique at the top tech companies. So if you know how to use this and you're in an interview and the question just comes up, you will really impress them if you say, yep, I know how to use BEM CSS. I've used it in my projects. So inside the list, we're just going to have an anchor tag. And this is what's actually going to send us down the page. So when we click the anchor, for about, it's going to open this contact. For projects, it's going to send us down. And for contact, again, it's going to open the contact page. And this is because we want to push them to the contact page as much as possible. Now, if you didn't realize, I love sending them to the contact page. So if you press About Me, contact page. If you press this, contact page. And that's because if they're hiring you, you want to make it easy for them to contact you. So if you only had one link and it was at the top, they can easily miss it and say, all right, yep, next application. We forgot about this guy. But we are really pushing the contact in them. So they're like, all right, fine. I'll hire you. Yep, hire me. Nice e-portfolio. Let's do this. And it actually sends to your email. Cool. That's all they need to do. And then you get the email and you can message them back. It's that easy. So let's just call these links. I'm going to call this one About, and it's going to send them. We'll send them to the top of the page, which all we need to do is add hash. And we're going to add these classes. So class, and we're going to separate them in a new line. You can do this. Navlink anchor. Link hover effect. But this one's tricky. For BEM CSS, if there's 2 words in one element, you just separate it by 1 hyphen, not 2. So hover effect is 1 word and it's the element. And the final class, link hover effect. And now we move on to the modifier. Now it's 2 hyphens, color black. Now let's just copy this over. So we want 3 of them. So about projects really quickly. Or you can just copy and paste it. So the second one's called projects. Third one, contact. And let's go over and let's see what this looks like. And it looks like shit. And that's for a few reasons. Number 1, we didn't style it. We have no styling. Number 2, we actually need to add an image. So what I'm going to do is add the assets folder to this file. And you can actually find the assets folder in the repository that I linked you. So all you do is just press copy folder. And you have assets. And you want it in your main files. Now for this, what you want to do is you want to swap your logo with your own logo. And you want to swap these projects. So the Google mockup, the Blinker mockup, the chat.png, What you want to do is you can use these pictures, but you just want to put your own projects on top of them. And also, obviously, you don't want to use my example resume. You want to use your own resume. So in order to target your image, target the assets folder. And then let's target the logo. And my one's actually white, so you can't really see it. But I'm going to show you a cool trick on how you can actually make this black, even though it's white. And it's by using CSS filters. So let's target this. I'm going to call my ID personal logo. And we'll just do one hyphen. Because in my opinion, personal is not really a block. I think this whole thing's a block. But this is all up to you. You can name it whatever you want. So I'm going to call it personal logo. And then target it. Because it's an ID, we use hash. And I'm going to change the filter. So we just want to go over here. We want to add a filter. And let's invert it. So if you invert it, it just turns black instead of white. And that's pretty cool. But something like really cool is, if you look closely, you can actually see that it's getting transitioned. And I'll show you how to do that later. But that's the cool thing about changing the color of your icon. You can actually transition it as well. But now let's set the height and width of it. I'm going to set it both to 50 pixels. And that's looking pretty good. Now what we want to do is we want to remove this margin that you're looking at from the body. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove margin off everything. So I'm going to reset all the default CSS. I want to set all the CSS myself. So margin 0, padding 0. And now you can see the body doesn't have any margins anymore. I want to do that myself. Next up, I'm going to set every element. I want you to box size in border box, because this makes the most sense to most developers. And now I want to set the font family. I'm going to set it to, we're going to use Roboto for this. And we're going to fall back to sans serif if their browser can't download Roboto. But it's not just going to work like that. What we need to do is go to Google Fonts, click this, and we actually need to download Roboto. So find Roboto, it's this one. We're going to download regular 400, just press select style, bold 700, and bold 900. And now we have all those selected. You can see up here 400, 700, 900. Press import. Copy this link and paste it at the top of your file. Okay, now everyone can download Roboto when they visit your website. So you can close this website and let's have a look. Is it using Roboto? Yes, you are. You can see next to the font, it says Roboto, which is pretty cool. So now what we want to do is we want to set the image to the left and we want all these links to the right. And what we're going to do is we're going to use Flexbox. So let's target the nav. We're going to display flex, justify content, space between. And that's going to send it to different sides. Now we want to target this unordered list and do the same thing. How we want to display flex so they're side by side, they're not on top of each other. So target the nav link list, display flex, and now they're side by side. But you can see we actually see some bullet points, and that's because that's the default styling of list elements in HTML. So target the list and write list style type none. And there goes the bullet points. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this navigation, and I'm going to use command / and I'm actually going to comment that just to make it super easy for us to see the different sections, because this file is going to get pretty big soon. And I'm just going to bring this personal logo, bring it down here. So at the top we have all our generic classes, then we have our navigation. Okay, so now let's center everything nicely. So let's target our nav and let's style this. So I want to align items in the center. So you can see the links are set in now. Set the width to 100%. And then let's cap it with a max width. And I want the max width to be 1200 pixels. So now you can see, it's not the entire width of the page. And now let's center this. So margin 0 auto centers it. Margin 0 for the top and bottom. Auto to the left and right. And you can see everything centered. We'll create a height of 100 pixels. And now let's just spread out, let's style these links. So we called it nav double underscore link. So we'll target that. And what we want to do is add a margin. So 0 for the top and bottom, 12 for the left and right. And you can see it spread out a bit. Now let's target the nav link anchor. So for all our anchor elements, and we're doing this separately because we didn't import this yet, but this doesn't have navlink anchor on it. We want to separate this from the proper link. So navlink anchor, we want no text decoration. I don't like the underline. Remove that. We'll set the font size 16 pixels. Color 24, 24, 24. And the font weight 700. If you remembered, we imported 700 up here from Roberto. And finally, let's get this icon that you're looking at. So what we want to do is we want to install Font Awesome. And I'm going to give you the CDN link. And all you have to do is copy it. So after the style sheet, write this with me. So script src equals https://kit.fontawesome. I just got this from online. And all you need to do is just copy it. So .com/C8E4D183C2.js. And now add a cross origin of anonymous, and you can close this. And now we can actually use Font Awesome. So if you're not familiar with that, just go on fontawesome.com and you can search whatever icons you want, and there's heaps of free icons that you can choose from. So I'm going to write contrast, and let's find out which one we use. So we actually use this one. So click it, and it takes a bit of time. And you just want to click this eye. So once you click it, it copies it. And what we can do, did this import correctly? Yeah, it did, just have to refresh. What you can do is copy this list one more time. Instead of A, instead of contact, put the I. And let's see where it is. There we go. It printed for us. So if you see that, that means you did the Font Awesome installation correctly, and that's a pretty good sign. If you didn't, just make sure you see this SRC, and make sure you copied it word for word. All right, now let's just make sure we styled that correctly. So you can see this one's a bit bigger, and let's see what I did over here. So I set the font size to 20 pixels. So let's go target it, FA adjust. That's what Font Awesome called the class automatically. You don't need to add that. Font size 20 pixels. And that's looking much better. And that's pretty much our navigation done. I'm going to show you how to do the hover effects later, but that's actually looking pretty good. So I'll see you in the next video. Well done for completing the navigation bar. Okay guys, so now it's time to actually move on to the background. So you can see this height. It's actually like the whole HTML is only 100 pixels high. So let's increase that. So we want to target the landing page. So go to our CSS. Let's duplicate this, and we're going to write landing page. Separate that a bit. And what we want to do, hash, we're going to target the ID of landing page. You can see that's what we called it. And we're going to set the minimum height to 100 viewport height. And that's because we don't want to go to the next section ever. Not on a phone, not on a MacBook, never. We don't want to go to the next section. We always want this section to be 100 high. So we want 100% of any device's height. We're going to target every single section in the generic section at the top. We're going to put a background color, RGB, 245, 245, 245. And this is going to get this gray color that you're looking at. Okay, so now let's get this text going. Let's see what we did. So we have a header, and we positioned it absolutely, and we put it in the middle. So let's add the HTML first. So go down after the nav, dot header. We have a header content class inside of that. So our header just wraps everything, but our header content is actually wrapping the text. So let's call this header and be semantic. By the way, Command D, you can select multiple words. That's how I did it so quickly. And then this class, header content. Then inside of that, we have a H1 class of title. Hey, brothers. And then another one, and we're going to make this one orange. Call it title secondary. And we'll go, I'm David. All right, let's go to our CSS and let's style this. So, landing page. Target this, dot header. We're going to position it absolutely. We're going to make it 50% from the top and 50% from the left. We're going to translate it negative 50% and negative 50%. So if you don't know how to center things with position absolute, this is the combo you're looking for. Top and left, and then you need to translate it by negative 50%, and they'll put it in the middle for you. All right, cool. So now spread it over the whole page with 100%. Max width of 1,000 pixels. And I'll show you what this does. If you don't, like a lot of people ask, why do you put width 100%? And this is why. If you hard code it, the width doesn't actually do anything. But you might say, all right, just remove the max width and set it 1,000 pixels. Now that works, but if you resize it, it's gonna stay 1,000 pixels. It's not going to be responsive. It's still 1,000 pixels, can you see? So if we do width 100%, max width 1,000 pixels, now it's 1,000 pixels, maximum width, it's never gonna go more than that, but it's width 100%. So it's never gonna go less than width 100%. So you can see now it's responsive. And this is how you write responsive code very easily. So you don't have to keep writing different situations, different classes for every single pixel you go down. And this is a technique pretty much every top tech company uses. Let's add our paragraph text before we move on. So we have two different paragraph tags, but we can actually just have one. And I think one's actually better because it is one paragraph. So go back to our HTML, p.header para. And here you want to write whatever you want. Ideally, it's going to be related to the job you're applying for. I'm going to be applying for front-end software engineering jobs. So what am I going to say? I'm a front-end software engineer. And what did I do? I made it bold. So if a recruiter sees and they're half blind, they can see, oh, front-end software engineer. He knows what he's doing. Let's contact him. Bang. Oh, already messaged him. Cool. Let's break this. And I think that's how you do it. I don't actually know. Yeah, it broke. Cool. So you can see it started a new line after the break. which in my opinion is better practice than making 2 different p tags. All right, so now let's just make this bold and we'll make it orange. So what you can do is you can actually use a different color. So if you want to use blue, all you have to do is target this orange class and make it blue. And this is how you have a different theme throughout the whole website. And you can also change these. Like, you don't want to be using the same colors as me, but you can change this later. It's not a big deal. I'll show you how to do it quickly as well through using variables, but we can do that later. So go here, I'm a front-end software engineer, make it bold, wrap it around what you want to highlight, and class, let's call it orange. You can call it secondary if you want. I'm going to call it orange. And about me is in bold because we want them to maybe click it. So if you click it, bang, force them to the contact page again. So now let's style this. So we'll start off by styling our titles. So header, title, and let's see the styles we actually used. Oh, we actually called it title instead of header title. So remove this part, and that's just because we can make it reusable. So we can actually bring this up here. So font size, 76 pixels. Let's go back here, see what's going on. 76 pixels. Margin bottom, 12 pixels. Text align left, just in case it's not for other ones. I'll make a line height of 1, and I'll show you. I will make a line height of 1. Now that's actually too small. 120 pixels. There we go. 76 was for the other responsive breakpoint. So I think 76 for the tablets, and I just got mixed up. So title secondary. Bang. Well, let's set the color. F0 6449. We'll add important. So this overrides everything. We'll add orange to this as well. And you can see this actually turns orange too, but about me doesn't because we don't have the class there. So we want to add orange here as well. Refresh this, and there we go. So now let's target our paragraph generic tags. And for me, honestly, I don't think this is necessary. I don't think title secondary is necessary because we already have orange. So all we can do is call this orange, and it does the same job. And we have one less class to worry about. But what I'm going to do now is target the p tags. And for the p tags, I want a line height of 1.5 and a font size of 16 pixels. But I still don't like that styling, so let's style it further. So go down to our header, target the header para, and for this paragraph tag, let's make it a bit bigger. Let's make the line height even bigger than usual. And let's see what's going on here. We just need to add a max width to this so it doesn't span the whole width of the page. We'll do 450 for now. And you can play around with this, whatever looks best for you. I'm going to cap it to 450, so I have 3 lines and then my about me line. Here's a bit more about me. And then after that, we're going to have a bit more icons. So this is whatever you want. I'm going to put LinkedIn, GitHub, and PDF for the resume. But what you can have is maybe if you want an email, even though this is email. So I think this is more impressive than directly sending them to your email. But all you have to do is just go here, write whatever you want, and you can add your icon. And I'll show you how to link it as well. So I'm going to search LinkedIn. I think we use the second one. Yeah, we'll use the second one. Just copy this. By the way, you don't even have to go on this website. You can just copy me. And under this p tag, let's add a list of social tags. So social list. We'll add an anchor. Class equals social link. And in here, we want to put the I tag. And by the way, I'm auto formatting with Option Shift F, or you can right click and press Format Document. And we want 2 more, so we're gonna get a GitHub one. Let's see if Font Awesome have it. Of course they do, they have everything. So click it. I'm not a fan of that loading state. Once you click it, it takes like ages to load. And you tend to spam it because you don't even know if it's loading, but it is. I think they need new front-end developers working for them. And the final one, what did I put? PDF. Click the first link, copy, duplicate. Command X takes the whole line out, by the way, if you're wondering how to do that so quickly. All right, cool. So you can see it imported, but if you look super close, you can see there's underlines, and that's the text decoration, and we didn't get rid of that. So I think I did something here. Let's search text decoration. I'm gonna remove it from here, and I don't want it on any anchor tag, to be honest. I reckon it looks really ugly. I remove it for every single anchor tag. So what we want to do now is we want to make it bigger, and we want to space it out a bit. What did we call it? We called it social list. So dot social list margin at a margin top of 16 pixels. And by the way, what top tech companies do is they increment by either 4 or 8 pixels. Usually the margins and paddings are incremented by 8 pixels, and the font sizes are incremented by 2. There's never an uneven. They don't like using uneven numbers. And that if you do increments of 8, it keeps your website really consistent, and you won't even realize it, but that's the reason why. Now let's target each individual social link. So background color F0 6449. Make the color white. Add some padding to it. 6 pixels all around. Increase the width to 32 pixels. Again, increments of 8. Height 32 pixels. Increase the font size. Oh, it actually decreased it. And we'll set a margin to the right of it. So margin right, 12 pixels. Okay, now it's not actually centered. So if we text align center, does it do it? No, it doesn't. Let's see why. It's because it's not actually text, it's an element. So if it's an element that you want to center and it's not text, display flex, justify content center. And display flex this to get it side by side, and align item center to center it vertically. And there we go, it's in the center. And we'll add a border radius of 50% to make it a circle. And let's compare it. Yep, I'm happy with that. But you can see this has a bit more padding on the side. So let's see what I did here. On the header, I added padding of 30 pixels on the sides. So 0.30 to get only on the sides. And on the nav, it's 0.20. I should have done this before, but my bad. We can do that now. So 0.20. And that gives it a bit more space to breathe. And one thing I wanted to do is add this animation you're looking at. So when you hover over it, it gets a bit bigger, and when you click, it goes down. So it gives this really nice clicking effect. And you can see on this. So when you click down, it's like you're actually clicking something. And when you hover over it, it gets a bit bigger. So the user's like, all right, I know you can click this button. So let's do that. And what we want to do is, well, we want to make that reusable. So on these A tags, I'm just going to Command D it. And I'm going to add a click class. And go to the generic section. Add on this section, click. When we hover over it, we want to transform scale 1.1. See what this looks like. Okay. When it's active, so when we're clicking it, make it smaller, so 0.8. Okay. And let's make that transition to make it not look ugly. So transition everything by 300 milliseconds. And that's how you get this really cool effect. And you see it refreshing the page because we don't actually have any links here. So what you want to do is you want to actually put your own links over here. So it'll look like https google.com and target equals _ blank. And they'll send them to a new, this sends them to a new page. And to get them to download your thing, like if you want them to download your resume instead of sending them to a new page, in our assets folder, it's right here. So assets, example resume. And if we write download, I'll show you what happens. Actually downloads it. But I don't like downloading things without them knowing about it. So if you target _ blank, it opens up in a new tab for them. So same thing as Google. Bang. And obviously you want to put your own GitHub link over here. And what we want to do is add this click class to the contact too. To the adjust button. Why did that not do anything? Let's add it to the link. There we go. That's working nicely. And finally, we'll do the animations and thing. We'll get to that at the end, but let's just do these two icons really quick. So we'll get the mail. Let's see what it did. So button mail, put it after the header. So .mail _ button. I'll add a click to it. And the icon is mail that we got from Font Awesome. I think it's this one. Have a look. Yep. Copy, paste, make this a button. All right, cool. Now let's style it. So go down at the bottom of our landing page, mail, button. All right, so first things first, let's set the width and height of it. So width 70 pixels, height 70 pixels, font size 32 pixels, border radius 50%, again, turns it into a circle. I don't like that border. I'm actually gonna remove it. Background color 24, 24, 24. The color of the mail is gonna be white. And let's see what this looks like. All right, cool. But one thing we need that's very big is to add a cursor pointer over the buttons. So go up here, target the button, cursor pointer. So now you can see it actually looks clickable because the cursor is actually changing now. And let's do something to position it at the bottom right. So position absolute. Bottom 29 pixels from the bottom. Actually 32, increments of 8. Right, 40 pixels. All right, cool. And there's our mail. And finally, let's just add this scroll icon. And what this does is people look at this and they say, oh, what do I do? And they see the scroll animation, so they say, all right, now I know to scroll down. So let's see how I did this. We added a a.scroll. The href is projects. So this sends us down to the project section. And then inside our a tag, we actually have the icon with a click effect. And inside of this, we have the after pseudo element that's actually animating. So let's style it. And we can close it up here. So go to your CSS. Let's target the scroll. Position absolute. Because we don't want it ruining any of the other elements. We want this by itself. So absolute, bottom 20. Let's see what's going on. Let's see where it is first and foremost. All right, it has no width and height. So if we target scroll icon, width of 20 pixels, height of 30 pixels. Can we see it? Nope. Border. We'll add a 2 pixels solid, 24, 24, 24. And now we can actually see where it is. What a border radius. 24 pixels. Now let's see what's going on. All right, cool. We'll send it to the left, 50%. So this centers it. But if you remember with position absolute, you always have to transform it back 50%. So translate x, negative 50%, because we're only doing the left. We only center it to the left, so translate only x. And now let's target the after pseudo element and let's create an animation. So scroll, icon, after, and create a background color. Of triple 24s. We'll create, because it's a pseudo element, we need to set the content even if it's to nothing. Set the width to 4 pixels, height to 6 pixels, and maybe it's not showing because we're not actually positioning it. So align item center, justify content center. There we go, we can actually see it. Now let's just add a border radius to it because at the moment it's a block. We'll add it 2 pixels. All right, that looks a bit better. And what we want to do is we want to create an animation. So to create an animation in CSS, all you have to do is add keyframes, and then you just call it whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to call it scroll. At 0%, let's transform. We'll move it, oh not scale, translate, Y. So we'll move it 3 pixels vertically. And then at 100%, we'll move it negative 3 pixels the other way. And it's not animating because we didn't actually add our class to it. So all we have to do is animation. What did we call it? We called it scroll. We'll do 1000 milliseconds, which is equal to a second, infinite. All right, that's looking all right. But in order for it to get to not look like that, all you have to do is alternate reverse. And it goes from 0 to 100. And then it slowly goes back to 0 instead of jumping back to 0. And that's how you get this cool effect. Now, that's pretty much the landing page done. There's a few more things that are a bit more difficult. For example, this mouse hover effect and this contact. But I'm going to get to these later. We'll get all the easy things out of the way first. So let's jump straight into the project sections next. All right, let's get straight into the project section. So I'm going to inspect element here, and I'm going to break down what's actually going on. Okay, so you can see we created a new section, ID of projects. And then after that, we have a footer. So let's see what's going on inside this section. We have a container, and that's giving our width. That's giving our padding to the top and bottom. And then we have a row, and that's giving our margins to the left and right. Because without these margins, then it's just going to span the whole width of the page. So that's what the row is used for, is to keep everything nice and in line. Inside the row, we've got our H1, and then we have our projects. So let's just code that. Let's go to the HTML, and what we need to do is create a new section. Padding. We're going to have a row, that's our left and right. And then we're going to have a H1 tag, and the class is going to be section double_title. And let's just write here a sum of my. But for the projects, we're going to put this in a span and call it orange, because you can see we want projects to stand out. And projects. And then after the H1, we'll have an unordered list of class project double_list. And then we'll create a list of class project. And we can do this later. We can do the projects later. Let's just make sure everything's going right. Okay, so it's not. So the projects is good. The container is not good. We need to target the container up here. Let's do it before the click. It doesn't really matter. Container, padding, 50 pixels on the top and bottom, 0 left and right. Okay, now there's actually breathing space. And next, let's create a new, I'm just going to copy from here. Let's create a new one called projects. And let's target the section title. We'll align it in the center. Let's increase the font size, 48 pixels. And we'll give us some space for the project, so 60 pixels on the bottom. All right, and one more thing we forgot to do is under the container, let's target the row. So it's width 100%, max width 1100. So again, this makes it responsive. This is best practice. Margin 0 auto to center it. And then we'll add some padding as well to give it breathing space. All right, so now let's give the projects a shot. So inside our list, we have our project wrapper, where we wrap an image. And then we have a description over here. Let's see if I can show you the description. If I do opacity 1, oh no, I can't. Because, so you can see what's going on. On hover, all we're doing is transitioning the translate Y. So let's go to our HTML. Inside the list tag, what we want to do is write project double_wrapper. Inside of this, you're going to want to use your image. So what you can do is you can use my image from the assets folder, and then you can just literally just put your stuff over it, or you can like get it from Google or something. So target it, it's inside the assets. It's called Blinker Mockup, and we'll call the class project double_image, just like this. And then after this image, inside the div as well, we're going to have a project description. This is going to hold our text on hover. We're going to have a H3 project description title and car sales project. This is the name of your project. After that, we're going to have a H4. This is your tech stack. So we'll do class of project description subtitle. It's one word, so separate with one hyphen. And let's just write HTML, CSS, whatever you use. This is the technologies I use that I want to tell the recruiter, look, I know how to use these technologies. Here's the projects I use them in. This is evidence that I will be valuable to you. And then paragraph, class of project, description, para. Now I'm just going to copy this lorem. Okay, let's see what's going on. Inside of that, it's just 2 anchor tags. So project description links. Inside of that, it's just 2 anchor tags. I'm just going to put the link of your website. And we'll add a class, project description link, no S this time. And let's add the GitHub icon. So I'm just going to copy it from up here, GitHub icon, and then we'll add one more. And this one's FA link. And let's see what's going on. Whoa, okay. So let's break down this CSS. So we've got a row, H1, projects, unordered list, list project, project wrapper. Alright, the image isn't with 100%. That's why it's freaking huge. So let's target this class. Let's target the image at the bottom. With 100%, that should fix it. And it does. Cool. Okay, so let's figure out what we're actually doing. So we have a list. Inside of that, we have a project wrapper. Okay, so what we want to do is let's get this project description, let's get that showing in the right place. So in order to do that, we're going to position absolute it relative to the project wrapper. So the project wrapper is going to be the relative that we're going to absolute it to. Oh, sorry, relative. And then the project description, this is going to be position absolute. Okay, save this. See what's going on. Still nothing. Okay. Project description, this is position absolute. Maybe top 0. Alright, there we go. We just need to add top and bottom. So top, we'll go 50% from the top, 90 pixels from the left. We'll transform, we'll translate X, oh sorry, Y, negative 50% just to get it in the middle of the Y axis. Because whenever you do top 50%, you need to translate Y negative 50%. Whenever you do left 50%, you need to translate X negative 50%. That just centers it. That's how you do it with absolute. Okay, so color white. Max width 550 pixels. Now let's add the background. So let's see where we can put it. So we can say on project wrapper hover, when we hover over this, we want to show a background, and we want the background to be the same level as the project description. So where's the project description? Here, we want the background to be on the same level as it. So we can go project description background. Or is that the right word? All right, this naming is actually pretty off because it's not really the project description background. It's actually the entire background. So we can say project wrapper background. And let's style this. So dot project wrapper background, position absolute, top 0, left 0, width 100%, height 100%, background color is going to be 1C, 1D, 25. And now you can see what we're starting to do. So we want to hover over the project and we want this background. That's when we want it to pop up. So at the moment, I'll just do opacity 0.7 just so we see what's going on. And this is starting to look pretty good. So if you see in here, there's like box shadow and the edges are like curved. And that makes it like really like futuristic. I don't know, I just really like it. So let's look at the CSS we used. And let's just target it. So inside the project wrapper, we had a border radius of 20 pixels. Got a box shadow of 0, 20, 80, 0. And the color is black with opacity of 0.45. All right, but now you see, even though I added a border radius, you can't actually see it. And that's because it's overflowing, and at the moment we're showing the overflow, so we just want to hide that. And it looks like this now. So what I want to do is style the text inside the project description. So we'll target the title first. Just increase that font size. And now let's make those links white. So project description link. Let's see if this works. Yep. Increase the font size of the links and space them out a bit. Okay, so now let's add some margin on this para. Project description para margin 16 pixels 0. Cool. Let's see what else we have. These are a bit too close to each other for my liking. Let's access the subtitle. Let's add some margin to the top and bottom. Maybe 6 pixels. Actually, 8. Oh, not to the left and right, top and bottom. Maybe just to the top. All right, cool. I'm happy with that. All right, so now let's get everything working on hover. So we're gonna hover over the project wrapper. All right, guys, that's my bad. The footage cut off there, but basically what I was doing is I was targeting the project wrapper, and what I want to say is on project wrapper hover. So when we hover over it, let's target the project description, and this is when we want to set the opacity back to normal, and then we're gonna set the Y coordinate back to normal. Okay, so if you look at the project description, you can see this is the normal state. So opacity 0, on its normal state, it's hidden. And then we're just gonna transition it. So transition, opacity, we'll do opacity by 300 milliseconds and transform by 450 milliseconds, and we'll ease it. So let's see what this looks like. So when we hover over it, we see our text coming up nicely. Now we also want to blur the background. So if you see this one, the background blurs when you hover over it. So to do that, again, project wrapper on hover, target the project image. Let's transform. We'll scale it up by 7%, and we'll also add a blur to it. So filter, blur, and we'll blur it by 5 pixels. All right, we want this 0, and only when we hover over it, only when we hover over the project wrapper, that's when we want to add opacity to the background. So opacity, not all the way, but 0.7. So now your hover effect should look like this. And all you want to do is go to your HTML and add all the projects that are worth showing here. So all the projects you worked on, you want to add them here, add the title, add the tech stack, little description, and some GitHub links, and a link to your page. All right, guys, we're almost finished the main structure of the website. So all that's left is the footer. Now, let's just go at the bottom of the section. We're going to add a footer tag. And before we do anything, let's see what's going on again. So we have a row. Inside of that, we have our logo. We have some social links, and then we have a copyright. And this is pretty easy to code. So I'm actually going to call it container instead of row, because row is when it caps the left and right, and containers just for the top and bottom. And now we can add our image, which, did I wrap it in a figure? I did. Okay. So I'm going to have a figure, put the image in that. The image source is going to be in the assets folder called logo. And now I want to add some social links. Oh, sorry, not links, list. And then inside of this, this is where you link your GitHub, class footer, social link. I'm going to create a new line for them. So footer social link, link hover effect, just one hyphen for hover effect, one word. Link hover effect white. And let's get this GitHub link from up here. Okay. Where is this footer? Refresh. All right, here it is. Actually, I just realized one thing. We're not actually using the icons here. So we can just write GitHub instead of getting that link. So GitHub, LinkedIn, email, resume. Now for the email, this is completely up to you. To be honest, I don't like when you click this and it sends you over to like some new app. I like this much better. So if you want, you can even link this to the contact page. So we can do that. I'll show you how to do that. So GitHub, LinkedIn, email, resume. So when we click email, we can just take them back up to the top, and we're going to open this up for them. All right. Or you can even remove it. It's up to you. It's your e-portfolio. You can do what you want, but that's what I'm going to do. So you can even call it contact. And finally, after these social links, let's add the copyright. So copyright, I'm just going to copy the C. You can get it from online. Search copyright logo in Google and you can find it. So you can either copyright it or you don't need to. 2021. I'm just going to do made by David Bragg. But in my opinion, copyright actually looks more professional. So I actually recommend adding that, because if it's your own work, you can add copyright even if it's not. All right, so now let's style the footer. So create a new section. I'm just going to copy this, paste it at the bottom, call it footer. target the footer, background color, 24, 24, 24. Display flex, and that brings everything next to each other. Let's target this container and let's center it. So let's just add footer container. Add it down here. Margin 0 auto. Cool. Actually, what's better practice is let's add a width of 100% to this container. So now the container's all the way wide. So we don't actually need this. We don't need this. So now everything's the same, except the container's 100% of the width. Now let's add a row. So if you realized what we do, what the common practice is to add a container, and that's to give padding to the top and bottom, and the row is to give margin to the left and right. So if we chuck everything in this row, format it. All right, now you can see we're getting somewhere. Now we can add footer row, because this row is going to be different to our other rows. This one is going to flex direction column with a display flex. Align item center. And again, align item center centers it vertically normally, but because we put flex direction column, now align item center centers it horizontally. So let's target this figure image. Did we add the class to it? No, we didn't. Class footer logo image. So make sure you add this class to your image. And now we can target it down here. And let's make it smaller because it's absolutely huge at the moment. So width and height of 70. Okay. I actually want more padding to the top and bottom. So for the footer row, actually we can just do it for the footer. I'm going to add padding. Let's try 6% on the top and bottom, and 0% left and right. And I'm liking this. So I'm just going to make the text white. So footer, what did we call this? Social link. And the footer copyright. Did I spell this right? Footer. Oh no, I didn't. There we go. Now let's fix these links because they look like shit. Footer, social, list, with 100%, display flex, justify content, space around. Okay, max width, let's bring it closer together. Let's do 500 pixels. Looking nice. Margin bottom, 20 pixels. Actually, let's add it to the top and bottom. All right, so now, because my image is actually cut off, all right, that's because I hard-coded the height. So I'm just gonna remove the hard-coded height, and that makes the margin even. I'm just gonna increase it a bit more. All right, I'm happy with that. So let's go back here. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same. Just gonna make this capital H. And if you realized over here, we have some link hover effects, and I'll show you how to do that in the next video. But for now, that's pretty much our footer done. And I'm very happy with that. It looks pretty good. Alright guys, in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make these really cool animations. And it's actually not as many lines of code as you might think. So I'm going to go up to the top. And because it's generic, I'm going to write link hover effect. And let's just see if I have any classes for these at the moment. No, I don't. Okay. So what we want to do is target the after pseudo element. Now, this lets us add things after the tag. So I'll show you. If you add content after, refresh, you see it adds something after the tag. But we don't want text after the tag. What we want to add the animation. So we're going to position absolute it. We're going to actually put it bottom, -3 pixels. We'll give it a height of 3 pixels, width of 100%, background color. Oh, let's just do black and let's see what's going on. So where is this? Okay, it's all the way at the bottom of the page, and that's because it's not relative to anything. So add position relative to it. Let's see, hopefully this works. And it does. And if we just put left 0, you can see it's directly under. So in order to create this effect, I'll show you what you got to do. So its resting place is on the right. But when we hover over it, so when we do this on hover, now we want to come from the left. And we're going to start off with a width 0. So we only want to give the width when we hover over it. And we're going to push it to the right. Okay, that did not do anything. Let's figure out why. So the width, it's because we're not targeting the after pseudo element. Okay, now that's where you can see the animation coming. And now just to make the transition better, all 300 milliseconds, ease it, and there we go. But there's one problem. It's not down here. And that's because the background color is black. So all we have to do is have different hover effect. We have a white and we have a black one. So for the white one, make it white. For the black one, make it black. Actually, 2, 4. And let's see if this is white. No, that's still black. Did I add the correct? Alright. I named the class white twice. Refresh. What? Why is that not fucking working? Oh my god, are you serious? I called it liver. Oh, that's actually really embarrassing. Okay, now it's working. All we have to do is target the after pseudo element. There we go. And up here, bang, bang, bang. Absolutely beautiful. Actually, guys, there's one more thing just before moving on to the footer that I wanted to do. And if you realize, pay attention to the background. You can see the image in the background on hover. It's zooming in a bit and it's blurring. And I didn't add that. So as you can see, it looks a bit plain without that. So this brings it some life. So what we want to do is, let's look at the CSS we use. So hover the link and image. So you can see on hover, we scaled it and we blurred it. So let's go project image. We'll go, when we hover over the project on hover, let's go to the project image. Let's make it a bit bigger. So transform scale. We'll make it bigger by 7%. And we'll also add a blur to it. And we'll blur it by 5 pixels, and let's see what this does. All right, this works. All we need to do is transition it. Let's test 300 milliseconds. Is that too fast? See what we did here. It's a bit slower. Let's do 600. And that's looking much better. All right, so now we can move on to the footer. All right, guys, now this part is probably going to be the trickiest part. So you need to make sure you're paying attention. Honestly, I didn't know how to do this too much after working at my first job. Probably like 6 months after I landed my first job, I was able to do this by myself. So don't feel bad if you don't understand what's going on. I will try to explain it to the best of my ability, but this is what we're going to do. Okay. Oh, not this website. All right, so when we click this, we're going to open up this modal. Now, a few things are happening. So if you pay attention to the background, when we click this modal, things are disappearing, and that's just transitioning the opacity, all right? But that's not the hard part. The hard part's actually getting the modal to pop up. Actually, it's not really too hard, but it's more difficult than the other things we were doing. And it's probably going to be the most difficult thing, so again, make sure you're paying attention. So just before we close the first section, just over here, we're going to create a modal, and inside this modal, we're going to have 2 modal halves. So one's going to be the left half, and one's going to be this form. So we'll call it modal about and modal contact. All right, cool. Now I'm just going to say, here's a bit about me. We'll style it later. And over here, I'm going to say, let's have a chat. Okay, now let's go to our CSS and let's see what's going on. So you can see it's in the middle of nowhere. It's in no man's land at the moment. So let's create a new section and we'll call it modal. And let's target the modal. So what we're going to do, we're going to center it. So again, we're going to use position absolute because we don't want it affecting anything else on the page. We're going to use the position absolutes method of centering it. So it's just top, left, 50%, transform, translate, -50, -50. And this, make sure it's in the center, just like that. We're going to make the modal's width. We're going to make it 90% of the page, but we're also going to cap it. We don't want it 90% of the page if you have a monster computer like I do. You just want it 1100 max. We're going to give it a height. We're going to hard code it to 700 pixels. We'll create a box shadow of 0, 20 pixels, 80 pixels, 0. And we'll make it less harsh. Let's turn it down a bit. Okay, that's better. Give it a border radius, curve the edges a bit, say 20 pixels, and hide the overflow, just for when we create our 2 different halves. So now we want to separate our halves. So in order to do that, we'll display flex, and this brings it next to each other. And then we'll target the modal half. And you can see the width. It's only like 100 pixels. So we'll make the width 50%. The width of these modals are taking up exactly half, which is good. All right, so now let's target the about modal. So modal about, we'll create the background color. We'll make it just a light gray. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, that's looking good. And then we'll target the other modal, so modal contact. background color, I'll make it that dark color that we're using, 24, 24, 24. And we'll make the color of this text white. Awesome. So what I'm going to do now is work on my about modal. So let's see what we got in it. Paragraph tag and our languages that we're using. So let's go inside here. You can remove this. We got h3. What did we call the class? Modal title. Here's a bit about me. You can write whatever you want here. And then the h4 is a subheading. So modal subtitle. And we'll add a modal same thing for this, just because we can't have the same classes for both. And that's just because they're different colors. So we want our titles of the about to be black and the titles of the contact to be white. So I'm just going to separate their class names as well. So give them a second class. So P, class of modal para. I'm a 21-year-old software engineer. And then we'll break it. I currently work on extremely difficult engineering problems. All right, so what you want to write here is basically you want to sell yourself, okay? So you want to push everything you know, and you need to frame it in a way that will impress the recruiter. So basically, what the recruiter's thinking when they're looking at your e-portfolio, they're thinking, all right, how can he add value to our business? So it's no good to write, oh yeah, I want an internship, then I want a junior position, then my really big goal is to work at Google. They don't care. They want to know how you can help their business. So what did I say? I currently work on extremely difficult engineering problems. All right. So they might be reading this. They might be like, oh, okay, we have difficult problems. We have no one to solve them. Maybe we can hire him. Over here, I have my languages, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And you can add your own languages. Maybe if you know TypeScript, you can add them down here. Or if you only know 4, that's fine. You can only add these 4. But this section is really important. So now let's add our languages. We're going to add modal languages. Inside this, we're going to have a figure that wraps an image. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy these links. Okay, but you can either have these links local in the assets folder up here, or you can just get them for free online. So just create 1, 2, 3. I'll just have 4 for now, but you can add as many as you want. All right, so now let's go back to our CSS and let's make it look a bit better than this. So modal about, we need some work here. We need to display flex and flex direction column. This puts it over each other, but the good thing about this is it'll make it easier to style afterwards. So padding, 40 pixels top and bottom, 72 pixels left and right. And we'll actually add this over here. All right, so now let's target these modal languages because they're looking pretty bad. So modal __ languages. We'll display them flex. We'll flex wrap. So it starts a new row. This is just if you have more than 4. So it starts a new row instead of going all the way across. And now we need to add some classes to the figure. So I'm just going to Command D my way down, add a class, modal language. Target the modal language. Width of 25%. And let's target the image now. Modal language image. Copy this over, and we need to set this width to 100% of the parent so it doesn't look like what it looks like at the moment. Okay, much better. And let's just add some padding to the figure. I'm going to do 16 pixels. Okay, cool. But now let's actually center this. So in order to center this, modal about, why is this not centered? All right, so we've got modal about, align, actually justify content center. There we go. Now let's style our text. But before we move on to that, I just realized one thing. We actually don't have this front-end software engineer. We don't have our job role. So let's just write that in. Front-end software engineer. Okay, so now we can move on to styling. So we'll target the modal title. Font size 26 pixels. Now let's target the modal subtitle. Let's add some margin. 12 pixels on the top, 0 pixels on the right, 24 pixels on the bottom, 0 on the left. Okay, that's looking a bit better. Now let's target our modal para. We'll give a space between the images and we'll create a higher line height just to give space between the lines. So I have 1.75 and I'll show you what that does. So 1.75, save, and you can see it gives it a bit more breathing space. So if we go back here, you can see I highlighted some words. So this is the words that you really want the recruiter to see. So you have to select those words and go over here, wrap it in a B tag, close it wherever you want, and class orange. And I'm going to do this for every single thing I want to highlight. So copy user experiences, talented, talented and experienced. Pop this out. You just need to sell yourself as much as possible. All right, that's looking much better. So let's just double check. All right, one thing we're missing are these hover effects where we want to show them the name of the language we're showing. Because most recruiters aren't technical. They're going to be like, what the hell is this image? So when they hover over it, they'll be like, oh, it's CSS. So in order to achieve that, just go under the image, go under every image. So I'm just Command D'ing down. So in order to do that, I'm just going to Command D my way into here. So span, add a language, and call it whatever you want. All right, cool. We can see the text there. Now let's just center it. So we'll go to the language wrapper, which is this. Position relative, display flex, flex direction column, align item center. All right, so now the text is in the center. Now let's target the language name. Let's position absolute. We're going to send it 10 pixels. Let's start here. Okay, cool. And that's looking good. Now all we want to do is only show this when we're hovering over the language. So modal language. When we're hovering over this, now let's go to the language name. And now we want to show it. So in order to do that, by default, we'll scale 0. And now when we're hovering over it, we'll scale 1. And let's just transition it to make it look good. Bang. And now you get this really cool animation. One more thing we got to do is when we're hovering over it, let's just reduce the scale of the image and just transition the brightness. So all we got to do, modal language on hover. This time we're actually targeting the modal language, so we don't need to add anything after it. We'll filter the brightness 80%. And let's just scale it. So transform, scale it down by 10%. And does this work? Yep, let's just transition it now. All right, I'm really liking the look of this now. So that's one half of the modal complete. Now, in the next section, I'm going to be showing you something crazy. So david.bragg@davidbragg.com. I want to hire you. This is what we're going to do. We send it. It gives us a feedback and it actually sends to our email. So it's going to be tricky, but I'm looking forward to it and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so let's jump straight into the contact page. So for this page, or this half of the modal, we're going to have a few things going on. First, we're just going to have this form. And then when we click this, we're actually going to have a loading state. And we're also going to have field validation. So we're going to click it, loading state, and then success and error state. So there's 3 different parts of this. Not only that, there's also an email.js part where we're actually going to send you the email. So I'll do that in the next video, but let's just get the UI out of the way first. And it's not that hard, so don't be scared. So we have, let's have a chat. Where is this? So I lost myself. Let's have a chat. Okay. So here we're going to have a modal title and modal title contact. And it's not a div, it's a h3. And then we're going to say, let's have a chat. And then we're going to have a h4, modal subtitle contract. I'm currently open to new opportunities. You can say anything you want here. I'd love to hear from you. Something along the lines of that. And now we're going to have 3 input fields. But we're going to wrap the input fields in a form tag. And we'll call this ID. Just call it exactly what I call it. Contact _form. In this field, we're going to have a form item where we're going to have a label. And we're going to call the label name for name class form item label, and then we're going to have an input. Well, we'll just make the class input and write exactly what I write here, user underscore name for the name. And this is for the email.js part we're going to be doing later. I'll make this input field required as well. And let's just copy this 3 times. So 1, 2. And so we've got name, oh, sorry, copy it 2 times. Name, email, message. And for the name here, user email. For the name here, we're going to say message. These are really important. Make sure you write the exact same letters and everything. So this one's for email. and we'll just say full message. Actually, you don't actually need these. Yeah, that's useless. So this one, the input field is type of text. The second one is type of email. And the third one is type of text. And the last one's not actually an input field. As you see, it's like a massive text area where you can resize it. If you like grab it from here. And this is actually called text area. And let's just make sure we're closing our import tags. So import, close the import, close the text area. Okay, cool. And let's see what this looks like. All right. Now let's style these very ugly input fields. And I'm just going to look at this CSS and I'll tell you what's going on. So go to here, and for the input fields, let's put it in the generic section. So all the way up here, input and text areas. We want the width to be 100%. Let's see what this does. Beautiful. We want the background color to be 24s. We want the color to be white. So that's the color of the actual text we type. We want the outline none. So if you see this ugly blue thing, make that none. Or you can even keep it for accessibility. I don't like that myself. We're going to have a 1 pixel border, C0C for double C. We're going to have a border radius. But the trick is we're only going to have a border on the bottom. So border top, none. We don't want a border on the top. We don't want a border on the left or the right. Cool. And let's just make this a bit thicker. All right, nice. Let's increase the height. We'll make it 40 pixels. Now let's target the label. We'll make the font size much smaller. Make it bold. Margin bottom, space it out a bit. It's already 6 pixels. All right, now let's target each form item and let's space it out. So at the moment we don't have any form items, so let's go back all the way to our modal at the bottom. Form item, 20 pixels. And let's see, yep, nice, okay. Let's try to resize our text area. And you can see you can resize it to very weird aspect ratios. And to fix that, just go back up to the top. Let's target the text area. Resize vertical. This is the property that you're looking for. Let's hard code the height. Give it some padding. Actually, no. And that's looking much better. It's very close to the label, in my opinion. So let's see if we add a margin bottom. of 6 pixels. Does it do anything? No. Let's add a text area. Margin top. 6 pixels. All right, that solves that. Let's just make it 8 pixels. All right, to make it cool. So let's just target this H3. Modal subtitle. Font size 14 pixels. All right, there we go. Looking much better. Oh shit, I was looking at the wrong page. All right. All right, this is looking better. One more thing, let's just center this. So where we center it here, modal about, but we want to center both modals, just like this. Now let's just add that submit button. So after this form button, actually no, before the form. And this is important. So when we click this button, this action is going to fire. So that's why we have it inside the form. Create the ID, contact, submit, class, form, submit, send it my way. All right, that's not looking too good. Let's style it. So let's go to the form, submit, background color. It's just orange color, F06,449, border 2 pixels solid, F06,449. The color of our text is going to be white. The font weight is going to be bold. We're going to cap the width of it to 240 pixels, but we're going to make sure it's 100% of the width, even though it's maxed. Cool. Let's change the height. See what height we put. Now we didn't actually set a height here, and that's because we have padding. So let's add padding, and that's going to add our height for us. So 12 pixels on the top and bottom, 24 pixels on the left and right. There we go. And let's change the font size. Let's make it 20 pixels. And let's look at this. All right, this is looking very good. So now let's create a hover effect. So when we hover over it, we want this nice transition. So all we're doing, we're transitioning the border color to white. I like using hashes. So we're transitioning that to white. The background color is going to be transitioning to transparent. And it's pretty cool how CSS can transition that for you. And let's see the result of this. All right, cool. Now all we need to do is transition it all at 300 milliseconds. Lovely. Now the final thing I want to do is just when you click, do you see how it changes color? All you need to do that is there's a CSS selector for that. It's called active. So when it's active, border color, F06449, and the color is the same, F06449. Beautiful. And because we put the button in a form, you can see it's actually checking for validation. And I'll tell you why. It's because we put this keyword required. Because it's required, we need it. If we didn't have this, it's not going to say that. It's going to go to this email field because that's the next thing that's required. And I'll show you something else. If you remove this type email and put text, and you fill it in, and you fill it in, it will actually let you send it. So if we put the type email, it's not going to let us send. It's going to say, please include an @ in the email address. Please include a dot if we put an @ Watch. It's not going to let us send. It's incomplete. It does all that validation for us just because of this one property. All right, so that's looking very good. One last thing I want to do is look at how, if you look closely, you can see the input field changing color. So it's white, it's gray, white when I hover over it, and then orange. So all we need to do for that, all the way back up, let's look at our input fields. So we'll go input, on hover, text area, on hover. So when you hover over it, we're going to make it a bit wider. So border color DCDFE6, and then the input focus and text area focus, border color F06449, and now you can see it changing. And let's just transition that. So transition over 300 milliseconds ease. Oh, beautiful. All right, now it's looking really good. All right, so now we want to create the two. We want to create this loading state and then the green state, the success state. So what we want to do is go to the bottom of this contact, just after the form, and let's add them here. We're going to add the state inside of this contact form. We're going to call it modal overlay. Modal overlay loading. And we're going to put an I, and we're going to put the spinner in it. So fast FA spinner. And you can see the spinners over here. And let's just code this before we move on to the success. Okay, so we'll put at the bottom of the modal. So modal overlay loading. Background color. Let's just set it to blue so we know where it is and what's going on. Position absolute. Top 0. Left 0. All right. You can see it's up all the way up here because it's not relative to its parent. So modal half. Position relative. Now it's relative to its parent. Width 100%. Height 100%. Display flex. Align item center. Justify content center. JCC AIC. Font size. Let's do 80 pixels. Nice. And just to get the spinner rotating, all we're going to do is target the spinner directly. And let's add an animation for it. So all we're going to do is add an animation. So when you add an animation, you need that keyframes, and then you just call it what you want to call it. So spinner. At 0%, we're going to rotate it, but we're just going to rotate it at 0. And then at 100%, we're going to rotate it 360 degrees. And we're going to just loop over this, so it's going to keep spinning. And let's add the animation here. So animation, you call it the name, spinner. We'll spin for 750 milliseconds, and it's just doing it once. So infinite. So you can have this, or you can make it linear, and it just spins linearly. Now let's just go back here and change the background color. And that's our loading state done. Now let's just add a Z index of -1. And let's hide it while we work on the success one. So modal overlay success. And inside this overlay, I'm literally just going to write text. So thanks for the message. Looking forward to speaking to you soon. Okay. So thanks for the message. Looking forward to speaking to you soon. And now let's target it. So modal overlay success. And now this is where reusable CSS comes in. So again, it's going to have position absolute, top left 0, all 100%, everything in the center. Everything here is literally the exact same. But what we need to do is, this is why we used one common class. So you can see one class is common, and then the second class, that's when we differentiate it. All right. So the common class, everything's the same. It's all positioned similarly. So it's all absolute. It's all top left. It's all display flex, align item center, specify content center. That's all the same. So now we can remove it here. All that's different is the background color. This one's going to be 4B, B5, 4.3. We're going to make this font size a bit different. This one's going to be 40 pixels. Font weight's going to be bold, so 700. We're going to align the text in the center. And let's add some padding to it. It's too much. 20. 28. Oh shit. 280. 28. All right. That's looking pretty good now. One last thing is we want the X in the top right corner, just so they can exit out of it. So at the bottom of the modal, where's that modal? It's over here, all the way at the bottom. So just before the section, at the bottom of this. Let's create it. So it's just going to be an I tag from Font Awesome. And you can just copy what I write. So fast, F8 times. So this actually gets the cross. You can see up here. And let's add our own class to it. Go modal exit. Now let's style our modal exit. So all the way at the bottom, modal exit. Position absolute. Top 30, right 40. Color white or hash. Font size 36 pixels. And Z index, we need to make sure this is absolutely in front of everything, so 100. We don't want to risk this button not showing up. And now all we need to do is add a click, see what this does. All right, now we can actually hover over it and we can click it. Let's go to the click class and let's add a cursor of pointer. So now it actually looks clickable. Just like that. And now that's the modal complete. That's all the UI pretty much completed. So next, I'm going to set you up with email.js, and you're going to learn how to actually send this form using JavaScript to your email absolutely for free. So I'll see you in the next part. For this next section, we're going to be using a software called email.js. Now, email.js, they have absolutely free plan that you can get 200 requests from. And that's more than enough for you at the moment. Well, it should be anyway, as long as someone doesn't troll the hell out of you. So you go once you create an account, you go to your dashboard. See, I use 60 emails just by testing it, but you should have 200 a month. So go to email services, add a new service, press Gmail, and now you want to press create service after connecting your account. So make sure they have access to everything and then press continue. And now you can create service. Okay, cool. So now that you have this service ID, that's important. But now let's go to the next section and we'll create a new template. And what you want to do is you literally want to copy all of my settings word for word. So new message from user underscore name. Make sure this is one underscore. You got a new message from user underscore name. Message, user email. You want to make this everything's the same. Like obviously you can change this text to hello Michael or whatever, but you want everything in these brackets to match mine. So once you save this, go to the settings and you have a template ID. And I want you to copy this template ID and I want you to go back to your editor and let's create a new file, index.js. Now this is where the JavaScript's going to come in. So we can paste our template ID. Let's get this service ID. Let's paste this as well. And there's one more thing we need. In the integration tab, let's get this user ID. Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a quick heads up that Email.js did change the layout of their website. So this user ID that you're looking for is in the account section and it's this public ID right here. So you want to copy this and paste it in your Visual Studio Code and you just want to save this key right here. Now let's go to the browser and let's copy everything here in this script tag. Hey guys, Email.js also changed the location of that script tag. So to find it, in the top right corner, go to Docs. I'm going to open it right here. You want to scroll down to the SDK installation. And where is the script tag? It's under this browser script right here. You want to copy this and paste it in your Visual Studio Code. I'll show you how to do that, but just make sure you swap this value with this public key in your account right here. So again, you just want to copy this text, but make sure in your code, you want to swap your public key with this public key. Go back to your HTML. So we're going to go all the way to the top and they said paste this just before you close your head tag. So the head tag's at the top. So right here, let's paste this right over here. Okay, so now this is done. You can see some emails coming through already. But what we want to do is, first things first, let's target the modal. The success modal. We'll make a z index of -1 on this as well. Just add it to both of them, just so we can see what's going on. All right, so let's go to our form. So inside of this, we're going to remove the action and say on submit. When we submit this form, we want to call a contact class. Now let's go to our JavaScript function. Let's create the class contact console log it worked. Now when we press this, nothing actually happens, and that's for a few reasons. Number one, we're not actually including it up here, so let's include it. Script src index.js. All right, so now let's fill in this field. All right, if you saw, it did pop up, but it immediately refreshed the page. And that's because forms, by default, refresh the page. To stop that, we need to prevent default, and we pass in the event from the form. So let's go to our form. Let's pass in the event. Just over here. Now we prevented default. Right now, I'm just going to remove all the required fields just to make testing easier. So let's see what's going on. Now it worked and it's not refreshing the page because we prevented the default action just by doing this. All right, now we want to send the form. So if you don't want to waste any emails, you can just copy me later, but I'll show you how it works. So you're gonna do email.js, send the form. Okay. Now this is where this comes in. Copy our service ID. Put the service ID in the first argument. Now copy the template ID. Put that in the second argument. Now pass in all the fields from the event. All right, the name, the email, the message. Now, do you remember I said copy this word for word? That's because the name of these fields, user underscore name, exactly has to match. Where's our email template? That exactly has to match this user underscore name. That's why I said copy it, make sure it's copied. So if this was 1, 2, 3, this will have to be 1, 2, 3. All right. So let's go back to our JavaScript. We have one more field, and that's our user ID. That's what we need to pass in. All right, and that's it. Now, this is a promise. So what we can do is chain a then onto it. So after this, because it's asynchronous, because we have to wait for their server, we have to add a then. So after that, now we can say, all right, console log, this worked. This worked 1. And let's test this. This worked 1, beautiful. And if you notice, it actually waited a bit. It wasn't instant. And that's because we have to wait for their server. So in order to execute the code after waiting for the server, it needs to be in a then. There's another way you can do it. You can actually write async and await instead of writing then. And I think this is a lot cleaner. But for now, we're just going to be using then. So during that time that we're hitting their server, we want to send that loading request. So what I want to do is, instead of this, I don't want to waste my 200 emails. I'm just going to fake a timeout. So console log, it worked 1. So fake a timeout, and it worked. All right. This is where the magic is going to come into play. What we're going to do is pretty cool. We're going to create a constant loading. We're going to target query selector. We're going to target that loading class that we made earlier. Modal overlay loading. Make sure this exactly matches your class name. Next, const success document query selector. Now let's target the success modal that we created. So modal, can't see shit, modal overlay success. All right, now what we want to do is we want to make it visible. All right. So what we're going to do is add a class that makes it visible. So in order to do that, modal overlay, let's create a modal overlay visible. Now you can see by default it's z-index1. What I want to do is instead of it being -1 where you can't see it, let's make it 1. You can see it. So what we want to do, when they press the contact, what we're going to do is show the loading. So loading dot class list. Let's add that class we just created. What did we call it? Modal overlay visible. Let's add this class. So plus equals. Let's add it onto the class list. And we need to add it by a space because it's just a series of strings separated by a space. So class list, add. Let's add a space. Modal overlay visible. This space is very important. Make sure you don't forget that. If you're adding a class, make sure you don't forget this space. Let's see what this looks like. Click it. Now we can see the spinner. Beautiful. So after the 5-second timeout, let's just make it 1 second so it's a bit clearer. We're going to target the loading class list. Now we want to remove that. So dot remove. We don't want that class anymore. We want it invisible. But here we don't have a space. We just target the class. So let's see if this works. Click it. Okay, beautiful. Now we want to show the success state because it successfully worked. Success.classList plus equals. Let's add this exact same class. Beautiful. By the way, in JavaScript, you don't need semicolons. I just have a habit of writing them. So let's see what this looks like. Tell me that doesn't look beautiful. All right, so now we're done using our fake data. Let's use real data. So let's uncomment this. Bring these two up to the top. Copy what's in this set timeout. Put it in the then. Now, promises have something else. They not only have a then, they also have a catch. This is if there's an error, if the service is down for some reason. If you run out of emails, this is when the error comes in. And this is pretty important for user experience. You want to remove the loading state. All right, class list remove loading state. But now we want to alert them. Let's say the email service is temporarily unavailable. Please contact me directly on. And this is where you put your email. And let's see what this looks like. So in order to force an error, let's just throw it here. And let's see what's going on. Let's include an at. All right, we threw an error. Temporarily unavailable, please contact me. And the reason why, there's no point spending too much time on making that user interface. So in my opinion, alert for this edge case makes sense, all right? That you don't need to spend like 30 minutes making a UI for this edge case. It's just not worth your time. So remove this throw error. Make this visible all the way at the top. And that's our code. But the moment of truth, does it actually work? Let's go to our email. And everything is empty. This must be a test email because I literally just sent fields. So there we go. We got a message from this. The email, the message was this, the email is this. So let's just make sure it works. So David Bragg, Google, David Bragg recruitment at gmail.com. I love your website. I'd love to work with you. All right. Send it my way. Thanks for the message. Looking forward to speaking with you soon. Now, let's wait for the email. Refresh. We got a new message from David Bragg. I'd love your website. I'd love to work with you. This is the email. So all you need to do is email him back. And that's your email.js all set up. So in the next part, I'm going to show you how to remove this contact, make it show up when you press this, make it show up when you press this, and make sure this follows you all the way down. So whenever they're looking at your projects and they want to hire you, they always have a button here that gives them an option to contact you. So I'll see you then. All right, guys, that's the hard part done. You should be super proud if you got to this point. So now what we want to work on is we want to actually work on toggling these modals. So let's create a function and let's call it toggle modal. And what we want to do is toggle modal. Now, let's figure out how we're going to do this. In my opinion, the best way to do this, the best practices, is to target the body. Let's see. We're going to target the body, and I'll show you how I did it. So look at this body. Ignore all the data AUS things. Look at the body. See how there's no class? Watch what happens when I click this. We add a class to it. Modal open. All right. And now this modal, you can see modal open, and then the second class, we're targeting the modal, all right? So if this class exists, we target the second class, and that's when we set the visibility. That's when we set the box shadow. That's when we set the Z index, okay? So adding this class to the body just makes it so easy. So let's do that. First, let's create the class. Let's create it over here above the container. Modal open. Now what do we want to do? Z-index 60. Let's add the box shadow. And you know what? The box shadow comes from here. Okay. Let's hide it here. Hide the visibility, remove the box shadow. So by default, we don't see anything. All right. Let's go back up here. Modal open, box shadow, visibility visible. Okay, now that should work. So if we press this, nothing happens because it's not in our HTML and it's not in our JavaScript. So first let's add it just to this email button. So it's over here, mail button click, on click, toggle modal. And if you ever want to see if something works, all you have to do is console log, toggle modal, and then open the inspect element, go to console, and click it. All right, so now it's getting called. What we want to do is when it's toggled, body.classList, all we need to do is add modal open to it. All right. So now when we click it, again, nothing happens because in the CSS, we're not doing anything with this. So let's go modal open, modal. Oh, here, modal. It's already here. So when modal's open, and we can actually cut this and we'll add it here so we're not wasting our space up there. So now you can see it toggling, okay? So if you want to toggle it off when you press this, what you got to do is go to your JavaScript, let modal is modal open. All right, when you first open the screen or when you first load the page, it's gonna be false. All right, modal is not open. When you toggle it, is modal open is now true. All right, so it's false at the moment. Refresh the page is false. Now it's true. All right, but when we're clicking this, it's just running this function over and over again. So it's just true, 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 true. So in order to toggle it, all we got to do is modal open is equal to the opposite of is modal open. And that's not doing anything. That's because we're not actually removing this class when it's false. So let's do that. If the modal is open, return. All right. Return document dot body dot class list dot remove. Remove this class. We don't want it anymore. We want to close it and move this up here. See what this does. Click it. Modal opens not defined, and that's because we used the wrong variable. Now click it. Click it off. Click it in. Click it off. All right. One thing that's happening is on the first click, it's absolutely doing nothing, and that's because we're toggling it. So it's true at this point. So it's returning remove. So we don't want it true first. We want it false first. So is modal open? On the first try, it's going to be false. So it's not going to hit this. All right. It's not going to hit this. This is going to play. On the second time, now it's going to hit it because now it's true. And that's why it's going to hit this. So I'll show you. It's false. It's true. It's false. All right. Now let's refresh and try this. So it works on the first time, but it doesn't work after that. Now let's see what's going on here. So now the modal's true. All right. Let's just hard code it. So is modal open? Now it's false. I'll put this above the return so it actually hits. All right, so what we're doing is running this function. If the modal's open, we want to close it. So make it false, remove it. Otherwise, make it true and add it. All right, so now let's test this. Open, close, open, close. All right, now that's looking much better. There's one problem I have with this, and it's just the transition. It's not looking good at all. So let's add the transition. We're going to transition visibility, 1 second. Transition Z index, 1 second. Box shadow, 0.5 seconds. And ease that, and let's see what this looks like. All right, so now we've got some transitions going. Let's just add a Z index of -1. And that's actually what we want. So now what we actually want to do is animate both of these panels, okay? So in order to do that, let's find these panels. Modal open. So modal open, target modal about, transform. When the modal's open, we're gonna translate it back to its normal value. All right, so we're gonna translate it. This is its normal value, but we don't want to start at its normal value. We're gonna start transform, translate X. Let's go -110%, all the way off the screen. All right, do you see what's happening? Now all we need to do is transition it. Let's ease in. And you can see it sliding in. Now let's do the same for the other side. This one's called contact. Remove this comma at the end. Target this. Transform, translate X 110%. This comes from the right. All right, so now you see this weird green background. And let's just fix that quickly. So let's go to the modal overlays. Modal overlay. Instead of display flex, normally let's display none, all right? We don't want to show it at all. And when the modal overlay is visible, instead of transitioning the Z index, we still want to do that, but we'll add a display of flex. All right, so let's see if that works. So David Bragg at hotmail.com. Send it my way. All right, awesome. That's looking good. Now, when you close it, nothing happens, but we can do this. Now, one thing, I don't know if you noticed or not, look at this X. It's not disappearing. So in order to make that disappear, what we got to do is find that contact. So find the contact HTML. What did we call it? We called it FA times, all right? So this FA times, we want it inside of this contact. So now it transitions with the contact. Do you see that? And that's how we get that cool effect. Now, one thing that we got to do is we got to transition everything else around it. All right. So we got to remove everything happening around it, like this text, all this text. Got to get rid of it. So let's do this in the style CSS all the way at the top. Just here. So what are we going to hide? We're going to hide the nav. We're going to hide this scroll that we're looking at. We're going to hide this. What else are we going to hide? We're going to hide the entire header, all our text. We don't want it. Now, I say we're going to hide it, but initially, we're going to make it visible. All right? Initially, we want to show it. We're going to add a transition, or 600 milliseconds. Now when the modal is open, on the other hand, do you remember we added it to the body, the modal open class? This is where it's coming in play. When the modal is open, when it's open, when the header is open, opacity is going to be 0. Visibility is going to be hidden. See what this looks like. Alright, so you can see it's starting to fade away. Let's make this a bit quicker. So when the modal's opening, it's 400 milliseconds to fade out. And then when it's closing, it fades everything in 600. Just like that. Now we can delay it. So if we add an 800 milliseconds delay and 200, watch what happens. It waits a bit, and then it zooms in. Do you see that? So it waits a bit. Maybe we can remove this one. But I like the 800 milliseconds on the other one. So watch, you click this, it zooms out, then everything fades in at once. And that's looking really good. Now, all we got to do is add the toggle class on things like contact. All right. So nav link, unclick, toggle, modal. Copy this. Where else do we want to put it? Here's a bit more about me. Unclick, toggle modal. All right. Bang. And this is another class that we got to target. So target the other half. The FA times. Unclick, toggle modal. Now we open it. Bang, close it. Now you don't see a cursor and it doesn't really look clickable. Do you see that? So the user won't know to click this. So all we got to do is target it. Here's a bit more about me. Let's just add a click class. Do you remember we added that click class before? Bang. That's looking beautiful. So that's literally the hardest part complete. Now, if you're able to do that, you should be very proud of yourself. Now all that's left is this contrast and moving things around the page, and finally just making it responsive. And all those stuff, if you've done this, those stuff is going to be super easy for you. So let's get straight into it. Okay, everyone, now we're going to be working on toggling this contrast. Now you might be thinking, oh my god, this is going to be so difficult. But it's actually really easy. Now all you got to do is, let's see this class, FA adjust. Let's find this. Control F, FA adjust. On click, toggle, contrast. All right. Now this is going to be another JavaScript function that we're going to add. We'll add it to the top. And by the way, I like having all my variables, all my global scope variables at the top. So I'll move that isModal open all the way at the top. We're going to have a function, toggle contrast. All right, when we toggle it, document body, add class, class list, plus equals. Now we're going to just add dark hyphen theme. But for this, we're going to have a variable. And for this variable, we're going to call it contrast toggle. Initially, it's going to be false. All right, so contrast toggle equals the opposite of contrast toggle. If it's true, now we want to add the dark theme. If it's false, we want to remove the dark theme. So document body class list remove dark theme. Okay, so this is just toggling it off and on. So I'll show you what this is doing. Look at the body, pay attention to that. You click it, dark theme's on. Click it, it's off. On, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Okay, so now let's go to the top, just before the landing page. Let's target dark theme. And now we're gonna figure out everything we want to transition. So we're going to make all this text white. We're going to make this text white, the paragraph text white. We're going to make the logo white. We're going to make these links white. We're going to make this scroll, the mail white. So all we got to do is target literally every single one of those classes. So we're going to start off with the title, comma. And next one's section title. Next one's section subtitle. Next one's nav link anchor. Next one's FA adjust. So that's the actual contrast button that we're clicking. And finally, header, the paragraph text that we want. And all we're going to do is add white to it. So click it, it turns white. Do you see that? One more thing we want to do, dark theme. We want to make the section, we want to make every single section dark. So if you see, if you scroll down, these sections are actually dark. So let's do that. Background, color, 24s. Nice. Now let's see what we got to do. We got 2 more things to do. So that's looking good. That's looking good. Let's just make this icon white. So all we got to do, I'm gonna remove my filter that I put in it. Do you remember I put a filter on it to make it, to invert it? All I'm gonna do is remove that filter. So dark theme, personal logo. I don't want that filter on it that makes it black anymore. Filter none. And now it's white. And we also got to change the scroll icon. So dark theme, the scroll icon, border color. The border color is white, and the after pseudo class, the background of that animating thing, the background color of that's also white. All right, that's looking pretty decent. Now let's change this mail. So dark theme, mail button. Let's put the background color, make that white, and make the color, all we're doing is switching it. So the color is 24s. There we go. Now let's target the sections. Transition or 300 more seconds ease. All right, that's still looking good. Beautiful. That's looking really good now. So you can click this, bang, bang. It's light mode. You can click this back. Everything's dark now. All right, one more thing is you can't see this hover effect anymore because it's still black. So all we got to do is get the dark theme, background color white. Let's add dark theme, link, hover effect, the black pseudo element. So we're going to flip that. Now the black one's going to be white, just like that. And the white one's going to be black. So just copy that and make this one black, or 24s. So now it's white, that's white, and this should be, fuck, that's wrong. So once you make that background color white, you can see it's working properly. Now, in the next section, I'm going to be creating these animations. Now, honestly, the JavaScript, it's going to be tricky, and you don't even need to understand it, but I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'll try to explain it to the best of my ability. So well done on completing up to this section, and stay tuned for the next part. Okay guys, this section, it's going to be pretty JavaScript heavy. Now, let's just start off by adding the shapes. And you can see in the assets section that I provided, you can see a semicircle, a squiggly, a triangle, and a circle. Now what we want to do is we actually want to add those. So go all the way down after the modal, right here, just above the section that closes the first landing page. Now what we want to do is add literally every single image. So the first one, we're going to add a semicircle, and let's call the class shape, and shape is number 0. And we can remove this alt tag because screen readers don't need to pick up on this. And then we're going to have 9 of them. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The next one is going to be a circle. The next one is going to be a squiggly. The next one is going to be, let's just say circle. Let's remove these to make it easier. Then it's going to be a triangle. Then it's going to be a circle. Then it's going to be a squiggly. Then it's going to be a circle. Then it's going to be a semicircle. Cool. Now let's just number these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 9 shapes because we started from 0. Now let's go to our CSS and let's go all the way to the bottom. All right, we're going to put these shapes all the way down here. So you can see our shapes already starting to show up. Now let's have a look at where we're going to position these. So we have 3 on each row. So we have 3 rows. But for the second one, we just displayed none, the one over here, just so it doesn't interfere with the text. So I'll break down the height for you. So shapes on the first row equals their height is 35. Shapes on the second row their height is 70. And shapes on the third row, their height is going to be 95. All right. Now, shapes on the first column, they're different. You don't need to write this, by the way. I'm just making it easier for you to understand. So you see everything on the first row, 35 vertical height. Everything on the second row, 70 vertical height. And the third row, 95 vertical height. Now, everything on the first column, the width. So everything here, 5 vertical width. Second, 50 vertical width. And third, the third is going to be 80 vertical width. Now let's write the CSS for this. So shape 0 is going to be a height of 35 VH and a width of 5 vertical width. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, now let's just number them. 1, now everything on the first row has a height of 35 VH. Everything on the second row has a height of 70 VH. Everything on the third row has a height of 95 VH. Everything in the first column has a width of 5 vertical width. All right, so now we have 95 vertical heights and 5 vertical widths. So we got to update the vertical widths. So on shape 0, on shape 3, on shape 6, we're going to have 5 vertical widths. So that's just lining them up vertically on the left. All right, and then every second one, we're going to have a 50 vertical width. So that's this. That's this. And that's this. And finally, we're going to have an 80 vertical width. So after all the 50s, we're going to have 80. Now let's see what this looks like. And what that did is make them absolutely huge. And the reason because of that is because we're targeting their width and height. So we're actually making their width and height bigger, but that's not what we want. I'll show you what we want. So let's make this position fixed. So when we scroll, we want them to stay in the same area. But width and height is actually not what we want. We want top and left. All right, now you can see something starting to happen. But you can see they're pushed a bit down. So I'm just going to move them all up by 30 vertical height. So I'm going to make this 15. I'm going to make the second one, instead of 70, let's make it 50. And we'll make the last one. Let's make the last one, we'll make it 80. All right, cool. Now we're ready to add the JavaScript event listeners. But just to not make it confusing, let's just update these. This is 15, the next one's 50, and the last one is 80. All right. So if you're getting confused at this, literally, there's no need to worry. This it's not going to be practical in a real world scenario. This is just to make it look cool. So if you're saying, oh my God, what's it? All this aligning, it doesn't matter. You can just copy me and it'll be fine. So let's start off. Make this bigger. We'll target the landing page section. On mouse move, when we move our mouse, this is a JavaScript event listener that we can target. Let's move the background. Pass in the event, and this event's going to hold our mouse location. So let's create this function. Mouse move event. Let's target all the shapes. So constant shapes, document, query selector, all. We're going to have them in an array. Every class with a shape, and if you remember, we call them all shapes. So that lets us target them all. Now let's get the mouse position. So const, we'll get the X position, and this, it's on the event parameter that we're taking it from. Event client X, and then we'll get the Y as well, event client Y, and let's console log this and see what we're getting. All right, now you can see every time I move the mouse, it's printing a new value. So this is when we want to recalculate the position of these shapes every time we move the mouse. So what we want to do is we want to loop over everything in the shapes array. So query selector all returns an array. So for let I equals 0, I is less than shape's length, plus I. This loops over every single item in the array. And now we target the specific shape element. So shapes I. We target the style. On the style, there's a CSS transform property, and we can translate it. Now, let's translate it by 10%, 10%. And let's see what this does. So as soon as I hover over it, you can see it translates by 10%. Do you see that? But we don't want this to be a hard-coded value. We want this to be based off this event.clientX. So let's target it. Let's make these variables. Add pixels, and we're just gonna add X and Y. And let's see what this does. All right, it completely chucks it off the screen. Do you see that? All right, and the problem we're having is we're translating it too much. Like, we need to cap it. So if you see this, if you move all the way to the bottom of the page, the shapes don't go crazy. And that's because we divided this by 200, or 20, sorry. So we're taking a much smaller number. So as you can see, even if we move our mouse all the way to the bottom, because we divided the number by 20, it's not going that far down. And that's what's letting us have this really cool effect. Now, just to write clean code, someone's gonna be looking at your code and they're gonna be like, what the hell is this divided by 20? So what you wanna do is call a scale factor. So const scale factor equals 1 over 20. And let's multiply this by the scale factor. Now they'll be like, oh, okay, so you're scaling it because it's too high. So now this is much more readable code, and this is best practice. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed, but you can see all the shapes moving in the same direction. But this one, it's moving in different directions, and it looks a lot cooler. Now, in order to do that, all we got to do is swap the direction of the movement for the odd shapes, okay? And I'll show you how to do that. So const is odd if the remainder of I, when you divide it by 2, is equal to 0, then it's even. So const is odd is if it's not even. All right? So I'll show you. Console log is odd. Do you see that? False, true, false, true, false, true, false, true. So every iteration, the Boolean changes. Once we have this odd variable, what we can do is call another variable, and we'll call it odd integer. So this is either going to be positive or negative. Now, if it's odd, we're going to make it negative. If it's not odd, we'll make it positive. And all we got to do is multiply the x and y by this positive or negative number based on it being odd or even. So refresh this, and now we got these moving in all different directions, and now it's looking really good. So if you didn't understand this, again, it's not a big deal. It's not going to be practical in 99.9% of use cases. But it's good to know, and if you understand it, I'm very impressed. And one thing I noticed is odd integers actually not the right word to use, because it doesn't make sense for an odd integer to be iterating from -1 to 1. It doesn't make sense for it to be changing from positive and negative every single iteration. Because odd, usually it's just 1. It's either negative or positive. So what we're going to call it, we're going to call it Boolean int. All right, now this makes a lot more sense. Now people see Boolean. If it's odd, it's negative. If it's not odd, then it's positive. Now it makes it much more readable. And one more thing, I'm just going to change this to const. And now this is shapes done. So in the next part, we're going to be moving on to the final section, and that's making it responsive. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'll see you there. Okay guys, so in this next section, we're going to be focusing on getting our website responsive. So we can go to the CSS, all the way to the bottom, at media, at max width of 768 pixels. And you're gonna be like, why this random number? Well, this is smartphones. Oh, sorry, small phones. This is tablets, large smartphones. All right, so this threshold is gonna target CSS for every single one of these devices. So let's go to the 768 pixel mark. So around here, let's start coding. So we'll make the title smaller. We'll make it 80 pixels. We'll make the paragraph text 20 pixels. Okay, that's looking pretty good. These are still looking good. That's looking good. I don't really like how these shapes go on top of the footer. So you can actually target the footer. Just add position relative and the shapes go behind it and it gives this pretty cool effect. But that's pretty much this responsive. But we forgot to check the contact page, so let's just check this. Okay, this needs some work done. So let's see what to do. Because it's position absolute, let's bring it to the top left of the page. So top 0, left 0. The height, because we hard-coded it to 700 pixels, let's make it automatic. Bring it back to normal. We'll give the transform none, because I don't know if you remember, but we did -50% to center it. So now it's back to normal. Let's make the width 100% because we capped it. Okay, now let's do flex direction column to get the modal halves on top of each other. And I want to do column reverse. So I want to switch it around. Let's have a chat at the front on top of everything. Now let's get the modal half. Width of 100%. Let's make the border radius 0. Okay, and that's looking pretty freaking good. So let's resize this and see what happens. All right, I'm actually really liking this. So I think this resolution is done. Now let's target the next one, which is just small phones. And by the way, you can see how easy it is to use Flexbox to style your page. Like, I just had to use this amount of code and this entire website is already responsive on tablets and large smartphones and most small phones. So let's target media. Max width of the next one's 480 pixels. Let's target the title. Make it a bit more smaller. The paragraph text. Make that even smaller. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the about link. I'm just going to remove this first link because I don't think it's super important to have. And if they have a really small phone for some reason, like a iPhone 2 or something, iPhone 3, then they might have some issues with it being chopped off. So what I'm going to do is target the about. So nav link, just the first child, just the first element of the nav links. Display none. So now it's just project and contact. Because the about was already giving us, it was already sending us to the contact link. So this sends us here, projects. Let's just fix the HTML before we forget. So this sends us to projects. Is that even what we called it? Yeah, we did. And this one is going to toggle modal as well. Put on the link. All right, cool. So now the about actually opens up the modal too, because technically it's also about on the left and the contacts on the right. Let's go back to our CSS, finish off the styling. So I'm pretty happy with this. Let's go down to the projects, and we're going to need to fix this. So what we're going to do, let's hide this paragraph text. So project description, para, display none. See what this looks like. Looking better. Project description. We'll chuck it all the way to the left. We'll remove all the padding we had on it, and we'll make the width 100%. Let's see what this does. Does that even do anything? Are we even 480? Here we are. Okay, let me see. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Description. All right. Whenever you don't know what's going on, just make sure you check the class and make sure it's actually getting targeted. But now we can text align center. So we can actually put it here, and I'll show you something. it centers everything in the middle, which is pretty cool. Now let's target the subtitle. So project description subtitle and margin bottom 8 pixels. And that's looking pretty good. Let's just double check, change the resolution a bit. Yep, nice. Oh, that's way too small. I'm never going to have a device that small. And that's looking good. Awesome. Let's just check our modal again on this page. It's looking good, but that padding is just massive. Let's fix that padding. Modal, half. Let's reduce it. We'll make it 40 pixels everywhere. Oh, that's looking stunning. I really like that. All right, cool. And one thing I just realized is I want this icon. I want this to be on top of everything. And even though it's small, I really don't like how the squiggly things on top of it. So I'm just going to add a Z index on top of this at 100. So refresh the page. Okay, and one more thing. Let's make this sticky. So let's see what this does. Okay, sticky wasn't the one we wanted to use. It was actually fixed. All right, so now fixed. No matter where we are on the page, it's going to be in the bottom right corner. But it's kind of hard to differentiate like the background because it's the same color. So let's just add a box shadow 0, 12, 30, 0. And we'll make it just to opacity. We'll make it pretty light. So now, even though it's subtle, I think that's much better. Can you tell in the dark? Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm liking that box shadow. It's pretty subtle, but I like that difference it makes. If you want, if it's too light for you, you can even increase it, but maybe I'll keep it 28. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. All right, guys, we're almost done. I just have a tiny bit to fix, and it's not going to take long. So you're pretty much there. You're literally 99% of the way there. But what we want to do is let's go to the contact link at the bottom, and let's toggle on click, toggle modal. Okay, that's good. And one more thing, let's, on the mail, let's send it to the top. So let's create an href hash, so that sends it to the top. Let's make sure this doesn't break anything. All right, that's good. And I don't know if you noticed, but this is just jumping around way too much. And if you look at this website, it smoothly scrolls down. And all you have to do that, all the way to the top, HTML, scroll behavior, smooth. Now let's see what happens now. So we can press this, we go down to projects, we press this, we go down to projects. This takes us up and opens the mail. Light mode, dark mode. It's all looking super good. Contact takes us up. Resume, all you have to do for your resume is target the location of your resume. So example resume, and target equals underscore blank. Open that up in a new tab. And that's how you get that. By the way, all these links, I recommend opening them up in a new tab. So your LinkedIn, open that up in a new tab. So target equals underscore blank that. Because you want them to still be on your website, even if they're browsing through your LinkedIn, just so they could come back to it. But that's pretty much it, guys. Like, this project was an absolute monster. This project, if you have this on your portfolio and you're sending it out to companies, they're going to be super impressed. I highly recommend changing some things around. Those things like the color scheme, maybe like the position of this. I a few things you can change on the contact page. Maybe you can be creative here. These look really good. I don't know what you can do with these. Maybe move these text around, play around with it. But you can do whatever you want with this website. This is your own website. So now when you apply to jobs, if you send this portfolio to them, they're going to be super impressed. And all you have to do is host it with GitHub Pages. So just make a free GitHub account, create a repository, just push your code to the repository, and follow these steps, and you hosted it for free just in a few minutes. So that's what I did. That's how I landed so many jobs myself, by sending companies my e-portfolio. I hope that was helpful, and I'll catch you in my next video.